Hey, Don's fans. I'm here with Adam Cimber, baseball pitcher from Washington. Adam, you played at UW from 2010 to 12, and then you transferred to USF in 2013. You had a great season. The team went far in the WCC tourney, made it to the championship game. You got an at-large bid and traveled to Oregon for the NCAA tournament. You had your MLB debut with the Padres on March 29th, 2018, and you're currently playing for the Cleveland Indians. You transfer from UW. What was it that made you want to come to USF? And just talk about that magical season we had.
So Coach Greg Moore was the pitching coach at Washington my freshman year, and he was right up my alley. He kind of took me under his wing, taught me all the mental skills that I had never even thought about pertaining to baseball. And then he left after that year to go back to USF. So my sophomore and junior year, I had a different pitching coach. Loved him too. Dave Dangler was his name. But ultimately, I graduated early from Washington. I had enough credits to graduate after my junior year. So I had a free transfer to go anywhere I wanted. And I thought I'd want to go play for Greg again. And it just so happened I got Coach Nino and Knox and the whole crew. So it worked out great. But yeah, it was ultimately that relationship with Greg Moore that brought me back to USF.
One of the things that I love about Nino and the culture that he established is that once you graduate, it's not done there.
Yeah.
He makes it a family atmosphere.
Yeah, it's absolutely a family. It's like a culture I've never experienced. I mean, all my best friends. I've got a lot of friends from Washington too, but just that year of camaraderie, brotherhood at USF with those guys, I created lifelong friends that a majority of them came to my wedding and were in my wedding, and it's just something special, and it all comes from the top there with Coach G and Knox, and how they welcome everybody back, and how it's something special. It's hard to describe the culture that they have there, but it definitely is a family, and it made me want to come back for, I don't know, 4 off seasons or whatever, and work out. And the fact that they let me just mix in there with the team and kind of create my own schedule, and all the strength guys, Brian Lexinger and Coach Leach and all those guys, they helped me immensely too. I can't say enough about them. But just everything down there at USF, it's just so special to me that I didn't want it to end after just 1 year, so I had to go back for a few more.
Yeah. Well, your first tattoo that you got says God has a plan. And you said you write that on the mound every time you go up. Just tell me a little bit about that and how special that tattoo is.
Yeah, that kind of started in high school. One of my other teammates was a Christian as well, and he always wrote something. I can't remember. God doesn't care, I think, is what he wrote. And I was like, well, God may not care, but I kind of do how this goes. But then I kind of came up with God has a plan, whether it goes good or whether it goes bad. It's all part of his plan. You're going to wake up the next day and there's a lot more important things in life, and it's all going to be a part of his plan. If you're seeking him and his will, things are going to work out for you. So I kind of put that on the back of the mound since then, and it kind of helped me just relax. Once I step over that line and up on the rubber, that whatever happens, it's all in his sovereignty, and I'm just along for the ride. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to give it my best effort, put in all the preparation and work that I can, but ultimately it's all part of his plan. So just trust and attack.
Yeah, I love that. So you were a starter, but they kind of transitioned you into a reliever. You pieced together a fantastic 2017 season in AAA, and then you pretty much dominated the big league camp. And that's when you found yourself on the opening day roster. So just kind of talk about that first MLB debut and how exciting that was.
It was incredible. I never thought it would happen. Especially the year before, they sent me to extended spring training in 2017, which is basically where they kind of say, we don't really have a spot for you on any of the minor league teams. Try to figure something out. And it was starting from square one, kind of where it was figure something out in high school to get guys out. They said, you don't get lefties out very well. Figure something out. So I spent a few weeks in spring training and watched a lot of video on other sidearm guys like Joe Smith and Darren O'Day and Steve Cishek, pretty incredibly had the opportunity to speak to them in person now that I've got to this point. But it was going back to the drawing board and it worked out. I ended up going into that summer with kind of nothing to lose, and a new palette of weapons and attack plan against lefties. And it was just freeing kind of to be at that point to where they kind of said, it's up to you, and I might be done with baseball. And then I just kind of went out and did it and trusted, and it was again part of God's plan, and it worked out all right. And then just all of that culminating to the debut in San Diego and having my family there, and a bunch of my boys from USF came down and supported. I ended up getting a loss in that game. My first game, I got the loss. So it was a little bit of a downer, but all said and done, man, it was still incredible and something I'll never forget. And same with the last few years.
Well, and what's interesting is your jersey number was 90. In fact, you were the first player to wear 90 in MLB history. Can you just talk about the significance of why you picked 90?
Well, it sort of picked me. It was the number they gave me in spring training. They usually give all the guys with the lockers closest to the door the bigger numbers, because those are the ones that are going to be the first out the door to leave camp, and nobody wants the big numbers. So it was sort of when I was like the last man on my row, and I had number 90 still, and I was like, they didn't expect me to make it. They gave me the league grinder number next to the door, and I'm still here. Like, I'm going to wear this on my back the rest of my career. And then going in, like that first week or two, I found out that I was the only player to have ever worn it. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Like, I'm just going to roll with it. And then I was born in 1990, so it just sort of, it fit. So
awesome.
it was don't forget where you came from. Remember that they expected you to fail. Like, never forget that kind of chip on your shoulder, I guess.
Yeah. And you were traded to Cleveland, and immediately they said that you were a rarity in baseball today, a rarity that your fastball velocity is around 85, and that you're one of the few to utilize a submarine arm angle. Talk about how important the Cleveland analytics team has been for your new attack plan.
They're awesome. They're a whole nother level from anything I've experienced. I think that's the way the game is moving. It's a lot more analytical now than it has ever been, and I think the Indians are right at the spearhead of that. So I've been very fortunate to have been traded over here and gotten a chance to work with those guys. It helps a ton seeing like just how much detail they put into everything, with like spin direction, spin axis, like spin rate, stuff you never think about, like when you're just up there on the mound, meathead, trying to make the ball move. And they're like, well, this is why it does it. So it's opened up a whole new world for me, seeing the analytics side of it, and just having people there that know what they're talking about. It's huge, and I expect it to be a huge part of the game going forward.
You've actually got one of your teammates from USF, Bradley Zimmer, on the team with you. Just talk about how special that is.
It's really cool, man, to see him to blossom too. Like back then, he was a sophomore when I played with him my senior year. And obviously, just a freak specimen. There's a lot of talent in a man's body. And he's putting it all together, and I think he came into this offseason with a chip on his shoulder too. And I faced him a bunch when we were back in Arizona during the quarantine thing, because he was there for a couple weeks. He was just crushing me. I couldn't get him out. And then we went to summer camp here or over in Cleveland, and it was the same thing. He was crushing everybody. I was like, he looks different this year. Like, I think he's gonna have a breakout year. And so far, he's had a great start. And it's really cool opening weekend, we got to face the Royals. They got Kyle Zimmer on that team. So we had 3 Dons on the diamond that weekend, and it was pretty special.
That is so awesome. I love this. Manager Terry Francona said about you, I think this kid's going to be a huge help to us. Even just from one day, I love his presence. He's a young kid, but he was excited to come into that game. What has it been like playing for the legendary Terry?
That was one of the coolest phone calls I've ever had. I grew up a Red Sox fan. I love Nomar Garciaparra. I grew up a Mariners Red Sox fan. But Nomar Garciaparra was my favorite shortstop back then. And watching them win the World Series in 2004, like, I was running around the street banging a pot and pan as a kid, super psyched. And he was obviously the manager of that team. So when I got traded over, and he called me and said, "Hey, Adam, this is Terry Francona," and I'm like fangirling over him. And then get to show up and play for him. I mean, it's like all full circle. It's a God thing, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, it's really interesting. Marketing has really done a great job with trying to bring the fans into the stadium. I think for some clubs, you can pay $99 to take a selfie of yourself, and then they do the cardboard cutout and put it in the stands. So what has it been like playing with absolutely no atmosphere of the fans yelling and screaming?
They've got crowd noise playing over the speakers, so it's still
Yeah.
loud. I thought it was going to be weird. I think the summer camp thing was definitely weird when we were like scrimmaging each other without fans, and when we went to Pittsburgh a few times. There was no fans, but I think once the regular season started and I got out there, it was like still all that adrenaline. It was like, okay, this is real, and it kind of went back to like even during a regular season, you don't really notice the fans a whole lot.
Yeah.
So you have a bad outing and they're blowing you up on Twitter, Instagram, and they're there. But but for the most part, it hasn't been too big of an issue. I don't think in my mind with not having the fans there. Other than it's awesome to be able to interact with them. Like that's
Yeah.
a special part of it too. Getting to talk to the kids and
Yeah.
hopefully make somebody's day. But in terms of the atmosphere for me, I haven't noticed too big of a difference.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself going over there and talking to one of the cardboard fans?
I hope it doesn't get to that point. I could coach more doing that at some point. But
So I just wanted to ask you really quickly, what are you doing to stay safe in COVID?
well, they've got us with all sorts of protocols. We've had a handful of teams about like what we're going to do as a team. Like there's obviously rules implemented by MLB, but us as an organization, we've got our own. So it's like we're in a hotel in Cincinnati right now, and the second we walk in, they gave us this like goodie bag full of like sanitizing supplies. So I've got these alcohol wipes that I like wipe down the remotes and the phones and the handles and light switches, which I feel like I've always been a germaphobe, so I kind of do that sort of thing anyway. But they've got us sanitizing everything. I think that's really the important part. You see all the positive tests around the league. I think it comes down to a person to person level. Like you gotta keep yourself in check. Um, you know, in order for a forest to be green, all the trees have to be green. So like if you're not taking care of yourself, you're hurting your teammates, you're hurting your families, you're potentially canceling the league. You
Yeah.
gotta stay on top of yourself and trust the guy next to you to do the same thing.
And last thing, you've got the Samson hair. You haven't cut it
Oh
yet.
yeah, I got the Samson hair. Just gotta pull it up, but
Oh, there it is.
I haven't
Good.
gotten a real big boy haircut since the day before opening day of 2018, my debut. So just letting it ride.
Wow, it's looking good. You're looking good. All right, Adam, good luck tonight. And again, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And tell Bradley
Yeah,
I said hi.
will do. Thank you. Miss all you guys back at USF.